So I'm finally, yeah, well, not finished with my sheet, but I'm pretty happy where it is right now, and I thought I want to share it if anybody's interested in using it. I showed a little bit in my update video, and I changed a few things and put some things in, took some out, and I'll probably still change a few things here and there because I have some ideas. I don't know why, I don't know what I want to change, but here and there I have a new idea and I'll try to implement it. But for now I'm pretty happy with what it is right now, and like I said, I thought I want to share it, and I just want to go over the features with my version of it, so you can see it with some data in it, and later on show the clean version, and you can download it. I'll put a link in the description below. Okay, this is the first page. This is practically where you enter all your stats, and I grouped it a little bit. Basic stats, NHK easy articles, and you can use this one for theoretically any article, but I would use it for something where the amount of words in articles or in the text you're reading is comparable, because if you're comparing one with 1,000 words and one with 5,000, yeah, you know what I mean. Okay, next one, normal articles. This is where it doesn't matter how long each article is, because I count the words. I'll go over it in a few seconds. Then sentences, how many of them were from the wild, dictionary and full Japanese. Then this is just calculations and a comment section. What's important for the whole sheet, for every page, only edit stuff where it's green. So this line, this line, this line, this line, but not here, not here, not here. And also don't try to change any captions, because some of them also have calculations in them. Even here, the only thing you should do if you reach the end, right here, that you just pull it down and prolong it as far as you want, but otherwise don't change anything. As you can see, they're all everywhere formulas in it. So if you change a caption or another field, the sheet won't work, or at least part of it. Okay, first one, date, pretty simple. Even this, don't change it. It takes from the second sheet I'll show you in a few minutes, and I'll go through each section and explain what it is. I also entered information right here in most of the fields, but I'll still explain it a little bit. First one is the simplest one. Every day you just enter the amount of sentences you added to Anki. So this day I added 26. Let's take the next one, because on this day, since I created the sheet, I didn't have that much time. Yeah, I added here 22. RD is reading. I have an explanation for all the abbreviations on the second sheet. Then LI is listening. Then Anki. So basically just the amount of time you spend. And Anki is, like I wrote, reviews, new cards and card creation combined. So everything, every minute you spend on Anki, even outside of reviewing cards. Then, like I said here, just the amount of time you watched anime, you listened actively to stuff basically, and reading. Okay, then NHK Web Easy, also pretty simple. You just enter the amount of unknown words in each article, and calculations do the rest. If there are only, like here, only 4 articles in a day, it will still calculate it based the average based on 4, not on 5. So you don't need to change anything right here. Then for this one, for the normal articles, as soon as you switch over, you I wrote it also in the field on the top, you just have to copy the text you read into Google Translate, and it shows you the amount of characters in the text, and you just type that amount in here. I only have space for 3. I could make more if anybody needs it, but otherwise, if I read really short articles like the ones from FNN News, I just combine them in a field. I think, yeah, on those days I read articles from FNN News, and I just added them up. Same with the unknown words. And afterwards you just get the average unknown words per article and average unknown words per 1,000 characters. Okay, next one is sentences. So this right here, this line right here is wild sentences. So how many of your the sentences you created in a day were from the wild? So from anime, from manga, from series you've watched. And the next one is dictionary. So if you're starting the monolingual transition, that you can enter the amount of sentences you created purely to understand definitions. So in this case 14, so 5 sentences from the wild. In every one of those I entered a Japanese definition, and in those definitions combined I had 14 unknown words. So an average 2.8 unknown words per definition. And the last line here, like it says, full Japanese sentences. So basically how many of those sentences I added were completely in Japanese. So Japanese sentence plus on the backside a Japanese definition, and no English translation of the word you don't know. This will get higher with time. If you're not yet in the monolingual transition, you can just add in wild sentences, and full Japanese is then 0 as long as you don't use Japanese definitions. The rest also, like I said, calculations, and then here you can enter basically anything you want, just some comments, what you did on a day, when you started watching something, or I don't know, I started reading a book, entered it right here. Yeah, this, whatever you want. Okay, now the important stuff. Second one. Okay, here are the abbreviations, explain what they mean. And also right here, as you can see, there's only this right here, which is green, so only here enter your stuff. What you do basically is you enter based on what it says here on the side. So first one is starting date. This is meant to be the day where you start putting your stats in here. So if you start today, you have to enter the date of today, and it will it will calculate your end date based on what you enter afterwards. So the next one, duration in years. So if you plan to spend 2 years on deliberately studying Japanese, you can enter 2, 3, 4, whatever you want. Then immersion time goal every day. So basically what you plan to spend each day on reading and listening combined. I didn't split it up, I just took the combined one. And the next one is Anki. So how much time you plan to spend on Anki each day. Just enter a few hours, whatever you want. Let's say you want to spend 3 hours combined, so you have 2 hours for immersion and 1 hour for Anki. So just 2 and 1 right here. And as you can see, I changed this. It automatically changes the stuff right here. So it's also calculations. And the next one, sentence goal. So basically how many sentences you want to have in Anki by the end of the duration you enter in here. So the basic setting is 10,000. It's only used for this field right here, so it's not that important. But like I said, if you don't enter anything, it will just use 10,000 sentences as your goal and calculate the field right here based on that. But if you have a higher or lower goal, you can just enter it. Then, okay, now it's interesting. Starting date original. So basically if you're already learning Japanese and you're, let's say, 6 months in, and then you have to enter your original starting date right here. So in my case, I started putting my stats in here on the 1st of August, and but I started on 1st of April. So there's a discrepancy of 4 months, and you just have to enter it here. If you don't enter anything at all, you will use the date right here for the calculations. But in my case, I started a little bit earlier. And the next one, also only important for the backwards calculations. So if you have entered anything right here, then you can enter something here in RD start date, so basically the date where you started reading, but you only have to put a date in here if you have original starting date, so only if you wrote something right here, and then only if you started reading basically between those two dates. So let's say I started learning Japanese on 1st of April, and I started reading on the 1st of July. So basically 1 month before I started putting my stats in here. So he uses this to calculate. Okay, I will show you, it's a little bit easier maybe. Okay, the backwards calculation right here is from your start, so in my case 1st of April to today. And based on this, since he only uses the stats I really recorded, I have 124 hours and 59 minutes. And if I enter the date right here, why is it broke? Oh, I entered the wrong date. 7/12. Okay. Now, so as you can see, it's a little bit higher, 30 hours, about 30 hours, because what he basically does is he takes the days between this date and multiplies them by your average reading time, so it gets a little bit higher. But if you started reading after you started recording your stats, you don't have to enter anything right here. Okay, what he does over here is basically based on what your original starting date is, or only your starting date, depending on what you enter here, and the duration in years. It calculates your end date and how much immersion time, Anki time, and total time you would accumulate if you always reach your goal. So in this case 4 hours 30 for immersion and 2 hours for Anki. And it only uses it to encourage you a little bit. I'll show you in a few seconds. Okay, that's just the date. And here, as you can read it, I'm 261 days in till the end. I entered here the 1.5 years. I have still 286 days to go. And this one just changes. Right now I can change it a little bit. It changes based on how many days I'm in. So if I'm over 50%, if I'm over 50%, it will just say something different. Okay, next one, goal. This is basically calculated based on the goals you entered right here. So your goal for immersion every day is, in this case, 4 hours 30, and in this case 2 hours. So what it does is basically here immersion goal, days missed, so how many of the days I recorded I didn't reach the 4 hours 30, and this represents 34% of the time. And 92 days I reached it, which represents 65% of the time. And this one is basically on those days where I went over my goal, how much I went over it. So on those 92 days where I reached my goal, on average I went about 47 minutes over it. And on the 48 days I didn't reach that goal, on average I went 50 minutes under it. Same here with Anki, so days missed only 7, days reached 133. On those days I went over, on average about half an hour, and on those I went under, on average 10 minutes, 30 minutes. Total time I reached, total time goal is basically just those combined. So in this case 6:30, I didn't reach it on 28 days, 20% of the time, and reached or surpassed it on 112 days, and on average on those over 1 hour 8, and those under 6 hour 30. Seems a little bit high. Maybe there's an error. I'll correct it afterwards. Let me see. Yeah, it's the wrong field. I'll correct it later on. Okay, And the last one is ratio goal. Basic ratio is 2 to 1, so the ratio goal you have is 2 for every 2 hours of immersion, 1 hour of Anki. And so 66% of the time you should try to immerse instead of using Anki. And in my case, I missed 80% of the time, 80 days, and only reached it 60 days. But my average is still, I think, pretty good. My ratio at the moment is 65% immersion and 35% Anki, so pretty good. But still, 80 days I missed it, and on average I was 6.6% under, and on the days over, 4.4% over. This one, just a little bit of fun to encourage you. Depending on how many days, how high your percentage is right here, it will display a different text. Yeah, nothing special. I think you can look in here what it says, or you can let it surprise you depending on the values you reach. Okay, next one, base. This is just based on those stats. So on sentences added, reading time, listening, and Anki time. So basically it's just like it says right here, top line sum for reading, listening, immersion, Anki, and total. How many days recorded? 140, and the average for each per day. Maximum per day, so how much? What's my highest day for reading, for listening, for immersion, in total, and for Anki, and so on and so forth. Then say minimum per day, and then calculate it for my end date. So in my case, this right here. This is an example of a field you shouldn't change, because here is also, it takes the date from here, so it changes depending on what you enter right here. And just, yeah, theoretically, if you continue like this, how much hours you would accumulate. Then here sentences. So I'm currently 3,236 sentences in. Reached 140 days, so I entered every day. On average, I entered 23.11 sentences per day, and my maximum was 55 and my minimum 0. And if I continue like this, I will reach 9,847 sentences. So not 10,000, there are a few missing, and that's why I entered the field here below. I'll show you in a second. And this is just NHK Web Easy, average unknown words per article, maximum, minimum. Yeah, nothing special. I still haven't entered anything for the normal articles. I'm gonna change it later on, maybe add a graph and stuff like that, but right now I don't have anything. Yeah, okay, extra. Extra is just stuff that's more based on calculations or nothing important. And another error. Oh no, it's right, it's correct. I remember. It's from the first day where I only did my Anki and nothing else. Okay, yeah, start today. Also calculation, depending on if you enter a date right here or not. Otherwise it will change to, I'll show you, not needed. So you can ignore it in this case, but in my case it is needed. So what it does basically is it takes the stats I've recorded and the amount of days between those two dates, and calculates based on my averages how much time I theoretically would have spent, but it leaves out reading. That's the reason why I entered this field, so you can correct for the fact. So if you started 6 months before the date you enter right here, and you started reading 4 months into it, you can enter the date right here and will correct it here. But in my case, I started reading at the same day with the NHK Easy articles, so I don't need to enter anything right here. Based on this, theoretically, I have a listening time of 1,009 hours, reading 124. Yeah, you can read it basically. The next one is calculation for the whole period based on what I've entered, also based on the stats I have right now, and theoretical if I continue like this for the remaining 286 days. Yeah, and this one uses the goals right here as your benchmark and shows you if I continue, or shows me if I continue like this, how many percent points I'll be over my goal or under my goal. The colors of those numbers also change, so if it's red you already know you're under your goal, and if it's green you're over it. Okay, ratio. This is basically just your ratio from Anki to immersion. So max ratio for a day, the maximum I had in a day was 78% of immersion, and Anki 100%, like I showed you that one day. Then same with minimum and your average ratio right now. So in my case 65-35, and yeah, just use it as a benchmark that if you want to reach the about 66-34% roundabout, so you can use it to maybe change a little bit of your routine or stuff like that. Then dictionary, yeah, just some stuff. It just sums up all the sentences or the amount you entered right here. So it shows me that from the 3,236 sentences, 1,101 are purely in there to understand definitions, so not that many. And this is the average amount of unknown words per definition over the whole period, so 0.55 right now. And yeah, this is the one I said that if you enter something right here, it will change depending on the amount you enter. What this basically does is it shows you based on your sentence goal, so base version is 1,000. Another one if you enter a number on the top right here. But in my case it's 10,000, and if I want to reach 10,000 by the end of the 1.5 year period, I would have to add 23.65 sentences per day for the next 286 days to reach that goal. But right now, most of the time I'm over. I'm at 25, 26 sentences roundabout, so I don't worry about that. Yeah, this is pretty much the basic stats. Okay, the next one, Snapshot. It's a little bit more. What it basically does is it takes a 30-day span, so this is basically after the first 30 days, and accumulates the stats, how much hours you spend on Anki, total, average, same for reading, same for listening, immersion, and total time, then how much sentences you added in those 30 days, and how much on average, and your immersion, also Anki to immersion ratio for those 30 days. So 30 days, 60 days span, 90, 120, 150, and so on. In the first one, it's only the first 30 days, since it's your first 30 days, you don't have span and you don't have a total change in total. So what change does, it compares you, in this case, the second 30 days, so up to your day 60. It compares what you, in this case, how much total Anki time I had compared to the first 30 days, so difference of 1 hour and 27, and this also changes based on the amount. If it's negative, it gets red, and otherwise it's green. So as you can see, my average Anki time and total Anki time went down, and same with the ratio right here. So overall my ratio got better in the second 30 days, and then total basically accumulated for 60 days complete. Basically this is only day 0 to 30, day 30 to 60 is right here, and that's the total from 0 to 60. Same here, basically day 61 to 90, and this is day 0 to day 90 accumulated. And also here, right here, the change. And what's also important is this line right here. It also continues right down here and here. It's just a little counter to make it easier, because it doesn't make sense to compare the numbers. As you can see, it's everything is red, but the reason is that the 150 days aren't finished. As of today, as you can see right here, I'm 140 days in with my recording. So what this does is, for every 10 days you passed, it will change the next field green. So only after the 150 days passed, this one will change green as well. So you know that you only can start to compare two spans if all three of the fields below it are green. So in this case I still have to wait 10 days, and it will continue like this till the end. So I prepared it for 720 days. If someone wants to have it a little bit longer, I think you have to edit yourself. Maybe I'll add a little bit more later on, but it takes a little bit of time, so I think for now 720 days is more than enough. Okay, that's for this one. Maybe I'll also add graphs later on to compare the different spans, but I don't have one right now. Okay, the next one is nothing big, just for me as an overview, and I will basically the shows I've watched for anime, live action, movies, YouTube, where I get my articles from, at least mainly, and the books I've read or I'm currently reading, and whenever I've finished something I enter it right here, just to get a little overview. And maybe I want to go back to stuff, because you forget so many things that you've watched, and maybe you want to rewatch it later on and see what has changed. So it's just a little overview. And the rest, the normal graphs, I already showed in my update video. Like I said, I may enter a few more. Oh, I think this one is new. Yeah, it's just a comparison, basically your Anki versus immersion ratio for each day. Yeah, and like I said, I'll probably enter one for this to compare the different spans, but right now I think I spent the last few days every day maybe half an hour to update this thing. If anybody has an idea what I can change or what I could add, I have a few myself. The idea I theoretically had, but I don't know if I want to implement it, is based on the words you enter right here and the amount of time you enter right here for your reading. Theoretically you could keep track of your reading speed. So over time, if you since it takes those numbers, you could theoretically calculate your reading speed, but I'd have to split this one in two. So basically one field only for when you're really reading articles. So basically you start reading an article, you set a timer, and as soon as you finish the article you stop the timer. And the second field for when you're reading books, because when you're reading books it's not really possible to enter an amount of characters right here. But theoretically, like I said, I could split this one up into reading time from articles and all the rest, and then theoretically you could use this to calculate your reading speed and how it changes over time. But yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll enter it later on, and a few calculations based on this, but I still haven't implemented it. I still enter all my stuff in here just to see the averages. Don't know why. Yeah, like I said, if anybody has an idea what I could enter in here, maybe some stats you could calculate, also you can write a comment down below. Otherwise I will just change a few things here and there whenever I have an idea. But like I said, right now I'm pretty happy with it, and maybe a few small changes. But yeah, let's wait and see.